This video is a watered-down version of Calvin S. Hall's paper, Freud's Concept of Anxiety. Anxiety plays an important role in the development and the dynamic of personality in psychoanalytic theory. It is also of central significance in Freud's theory of the neurosis and psychosis and in the treatment of these pathological conditions. But before we jump right in, we should first define what anxiety is. Anxiety is a painful emotional experience which is produced by excitations in the internal organs of the body. These excitations result from internal or external stimulation and are governed by the autonomic nervous system. For example, when a person encounters a dangerous situation, his heart beats faster, he breathes more rapidly, his mouth becomes dry, and the palms of his hands sweat. Anxiety differs from other painful states such as tension, pain, and melancholy by some specific quality of consciousness. What exactly determines this quality is quite unknown. Freud thought it might be some distinctive feature of the visceral excitations themselves. In any event, anxiety is a conscious state which can be distinguished subjectively by a person from experiences of pain, depression, melancholy, and other tensions resulting from hunger, thirst, sex, and other bodily needs. It can never be an unconscious state. One can be aware of the reason for his anxiety, but he cannot be unaware of the feeling of anxiety. Anxiety is synonymous with the emotion of fear, and Freud recognized that one could be afraid of internal dangers as well as external ones. That is why he preferred to use the term anxiety to avoid being mistaken from fear in the sense of being afraid of something in the external world. Freud differentiated three types of anxiety: reality or objective anxiety, neurotic anxiety, and moral anxiety. The difference between the three has something to do with the source. In reality anxiety, the source of danger lies in the external world. For example, a poisonous snake, a man with a gun, or the dark itself. In neurotic anxiety, the threat resides in an instinctual object choice of the id. For example, being afraid of being overwhelmed by an uncontrollable urge to do something that will be harmful to himself. It is a fear of what might happen if the ego fails to stop the id from its impulses. Neurotic anxiety can be displayed in three forms. The first one is the free-floating type of apprehensiveness which readily attaches itself to any more or less suitable environmental circumstance. This characterizes the nervous person who is always expecting something dreadful to happen. In this case, we might say that he is afraid of his own id, or that the person is afraid that the constant pressure of the id would make it seize control of the ego and reduce it to a state of helplessness. The second one, the intense irrational fear or phobia. The characteristic of a phobia is that the intensity of fear is out of proportion to the actual danger of the object which the person is afraid of. The object of the phobia represents a temptation to instinctual gratification or is associated in some way. Freud believed that behind every neurotic fear, there is a primitive wish of the id for the object of which one is afraid. The third one, panic or near-panic reactions. This reaction appears suddenly and with no apparent provocation. For example, someone running berserk and shooting down people he doesn't even know. Subsequently, he cannot explain why he did such things. All he knows is that he felt so upset and so tense that he had to do something before he exploded. These panic reactions are examples of discharge behavior to rid the person of excessively painful neurotic anxiety by doing what the id demands in spite of the ego and superego prohibitions. In moral anxiety, the source of the threat is the conscience of the superego system, like when you are afraid of feeling guilty for doing or even thinking something which is contrary to the standards of the ego ideal. The original fear from which moral anxiety is derived is an objective one, the fear of the punitive parents. Similar with neurotic anxiety, the source of moral anxiety lies within the personality structure, and as with neurotic anxiety, the person cannot escape from feelings of guilt by running away from them. Since the conflict is intrapsychic, which means it is a structural one, and does not involve a relationship between the person and the world. except in the historical sense that moral anxiety is an outgrowth of an objective fear of the parents. These three types of anxiety that the ego experiences are fear of the external world, fear of the id, and fear of the superego. The distinction between these types of anxiety does not mean that the person experiencing the anxiety is actually aware of its source. For example, a person who is afraid of handling knives may think that this fear is because knives and other sharp objects are intrinsically dangerous. But what actually frightens him is that he may become aggressive and hurt others around him, or a person who is afraid of being in high places when he's actually afraid that his conscience might seize the opportunity of punishing himself for his sins by causing him to fall off. An anxiety state may have more than one source, which means it can be a blend of neurotic and objective anxiety, or neurotic and moral anxiety, or the blend of all three. While anxiety is painful and most people would like for it to be gone as soon as possible, in Freudian thought, it serves a necessary function by alerting a person to the presence of internal and external dangers. When a person is alerted, he can do something to ward off or avoid the danger. In case the danger cannot be avoided, anxiety may pile up and overwhelm the person. When this happens, the person is said to have what is called a nervous breakdown. Calvin Hall states, "It is one of the ironies of life that a virtuous person experiences more shame than an unvirtuous person does. This is because merely thinking of doing something bad makes a virtuous person feel guilt, and a person who has a lot of self-control is more likely to think more of his instinctual temptations, since he does not find other outlets for it. A less virtuous person's superego is not as strong, so he is less likely to feel guilt when he thinks or does something that goes against the moral code. These guilt feelings are the part of the price the idealistic person pays for instinctual renunciation." Anxiety is a warning signal to the ego that it is in danger. In objective anxiety, if the person did not heed the warning, something harmful might happen to him, and by paying attention to the warning, the person may be able to avoid harm. However, in both neurotic and moral anxiety, the fear does not lie in the external world. What does he fear then? He is afraid of fear itself. This is apparent in the case of guilt feelings which are directly painful to the person. Moral anxiety may become so unbearable that the guilty person might do something to invite punishment from an external source in order to relieve his guilt. People have been known to commit crimes out of guilt, and they are easily caught because they want to be caught and punished. In a similar manner, the neurotic anxiety may cause a person to lose control and do something impulsive. The consequences of the impulsive deed or the punishment from something a person did against his moral code is believed to be less painful than the anxiety itself. All in all, neurotic and moral anxiety is not only a signal of impending danger to the superego, it is also the danger itself. And that's it. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, tell us what kind of psychology videos you want us to do next, and also check out our merch, links in the description. See ya.